Ladies and gents, welcome back. We've been talking about the Dutch farmers and their government's excuse for saving the environment to, well, basically bankrupt them and take their land and use it for other things. Now, it always reminds me of this meme here. This is where I live. I've been told I need to take better care of the environment by people who live here. Of course, dirty city. Now, this is happening in Canada. The implementation of this nitrogen policy is being put into place. This morning, I saw this from Jeremy Cockrill, MLA from the Battlefords, Minister of Highways and Minister responsible for Water Security Agency in Saskatchewan, put out a tweet yesterday saying, "We're demanding an explanation for Federal Minister Guilbeault, Steven Guilbeault, on why his department is trespassing on private lands without the owner's permission to take water samples from dugouts. We have received reports of this occurring in several places throughout Saskatchewan." Now, Steven Guilbeault is the Minister of the Environment under Justin Trudeau. You may recognize him here from his being arrested during some stunt he was pulling for Greenpeace. Greenpeace, of course, is the organization that actively puts spikes in trees to for the purpose of maiming or killing forestry workers. This is this type of organization. He is now in government and in charge of, well, the environmental agency in the government. Now, this letter went out from Saskatchewan directly aimed at him, the Honorable Steven Guilbeault, Minister of Environment and Climate Change, Government of Canada. Dear Minister Guilbeault, as a minister responsible for the Saskatchewan Water Security Agency, the provincial agency responsible for all water management related activities in Saskatchewan, I want to bring to your attention a number of serious issues requiring immediate clarification and explanation. Recently, Saskatchewan producers in the Penns Moose Bank and Pilot Butte areas contacted the government of Saskatchewan and raised serious concerns about the Government of Canada employees in clearly marked Government of Canada vehicles trespassing on private lands. When approached by producers, these employees indicated they were testing the water sources for pesticide/nitrate levels. The lands and water bodies are a producer's dugout. They are both privately owned. Government of Canada representatives did not request permission to enter from the landowner, nor did they seek permission to perform testing and advise landowners of any other purpose or necessity for attendance. There are two main issues that require immediate explanation from your office. General water quality management falls under provincial jurisdiction. The federal government should in no way be interfering with the Saskatchewan Water Security Agency's mandate to manage this area, particularly by inappropriately accessing samples from various private lands in Saskatchewan. While consulting the creation of the Canada's Water Agency, our government indicated that it would not infringe on provincial jurisdiction, but would work in collaboration with provincial governments. Your attempt to covert testing of water bodies on private lands in this manner without collaborating with the Saskatchewan Water Security Agency or any Government of Saskatchewan ministry has created unnecessary fear and disruption to our citizens while also displaying a disappointing act of bad faith. These conditions call into question the federal government's motives for when it comes to water management in Canada. The second serious issue is how government employees under current Saskatchewan law are trespassing on private lands and performing water testing on privately owned dugouts in Saskatchewan. Section 3 of the Trespass and Property Act states, "Without the consent of the occupier of a premises, no person who is acting under a right or authority conferred by law shall enter on the premises when entry is prohibited pursuant to this act. The Saskatchewan producers are owed an explanation to why the authority, an explanation as to what authority the federal government employees are acting under and why there is no communication with them prior to attendance on their private property. This raises the question of how many other such incidents are occurring across Saskatchewan and Canada. What kind of testing and or research the federal government is performing for what federal employees are instructed to trespass on private lands to test privately owned dugouts. As the minister responsible of Saskatchewan Water Security Agency, I'm advising that the federal employees should immediately cease and desist any further surreptitious entry on private lands, discontinue all testing activities where samples are inappropriately acquired, and the relevant federal department contact the Saskatchewan Water Security Agency to advise it of the extent and scope of this testing project. Violation of the Trespass to Property Act in Saskatchewan could have significant consequences, including a maximum penalty of $25,000 for repeat offenders, up to 6 months imprisonment following a conviction for a first or subsequent trespass offense, and a $200,000 maximum penalty for any corporation that counsels and or aids in the commission of that offense. We look forward to your immediate response. Sincerely, Honorable Jeremy Cockrill, Minister of Highways and Minister responsible for Water Security Agency. Now, this means business. This is a cease and desist. Stop what you're doing immediately. Now, a lot of people are afraid that this is exactly what went down in the Netherlands prior to the implementation of these very, very strict nitrogen emissions cuts on farmers, telling them that they can't use fertilizers. Now, here's an article from the Countersignal, an excerpt from that, saying, what is more concerning to some than the actual trespass is the motivations of the federal agents. According to the landowners who confronted the federal agents trespassing on their land, they were told that the purpose of them being there was to test water in the farmers' dugouts to measure nitrate levels. Of course, this is the infamous now nitrogen policies of, any country associated with the World Economic Forum. Let's just put it that way. For those following recent news in the agricultural world, this is being seen as connected to the Trudeau government's recently announced policy to reduce the use of fertilizers on Canadian farms by 30%. This policy has been widely criticized by farmers across the country and by provincial governments in Western provinces. Some observers say that there is reason to suspect that these actions are the first steps in replicating the attacks on the farmers that have provoked widespread unrest in the Netherlands and other places in Europe. While the federal government has not yet confirmed it, there is speculation on that the water sampling we now know is underway will be used as a baseline measurements to enforce reduction on fertilizer usage going forward. All of these factors have led to Saskatchewan Premier Scott Moe to demand an explanation from the Trudeau government as to what exactly they were up to. That's where we are now. We're waiting for the government's next move. Essentially, farmers are just waiting to see what they have this idea of reducing fertilizer usage in Canada. Now, will they actually implement it? Will they come forward with issuing fines for farmers who don't follow the rules, these new rules? The question is, why are we doing this when we're staring at a looming shortage for food across the world at this moment, are we implementing farmers to what would essentially be a drop in the bucket, because our farmers are so efficient with what it is that they're doing. There's a real science to this, to why they do crop rotations, why they do the amount of fertilizer that they do, and the amount of testing that they do on their own lands to make sure we're not going to be throwing away fertilizer, letting it get into the water table when we want it to go into the plants that eventually will end up on your table for dinner. That's exactly the idea here. Anyway, leave a comment in the comment section down below. What do you think about this and Steven Guilbeault pushing forward without the consent of the provinces here in testing water dugouts on farmers' privately owned land? Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. If you're not subscribed to the channel yet, do that now. You can hit the notification bell to tell you when I go live. And hit that like button. See you in the next one. Keep on trucking.